I see the recording
Yeah.
is on. So hello again. Welcome on the first Getint webinar, where we will be discussing the topic around the SLA, so protecting SLA across ITSM systems. This is one of the topics that is mostly brought to us as an insight from our customers. And since this is a very important topic, which we are happy to cover, we thought, how about we just discuss this and share the knowledge and the findings that we have with the broader community. And with me, I have Meira. Hello, Meira, our Chief Support.
Hello.
Hello,
Hi,
how are you
nice to
doing
be
today?
here. Good, good, great. How are you doing?
I'm doing good as well. And so we would be sharing different perspectives because Meira is our support lead. She has a lot of context coming from the customers that are entering our support, where they share a lot of different contexts coming from their business side. And I'm mostly handling sales and growth. So I have the insights coming from the customers on the very early stage when they try to gather requirements, understand all the processes and all the nuances of introducing a different process to the one they are currently having. Okay, so let's jump straight to it. I see we have still people joining. Yeah, so let's don't wait. Let's move. So let's first cover the topic around the SLAs, and because this is a very broad topic. So what is the piece that we are going to cover, right? So when it comes to SLAs, we would like to cover the facts around protecting what's important. This is how we perceive SLAs. This is how our customers are perceiving the SLAs. So usually you try to introduce the SLAs on the processes that are crucial for your business, where you can't afford to lose time, when you can't afford misalignments, when you can't afford people simply don't know what they are doing, what is the stage of the issue, and yeah, they simply would like to have a reliable system they can trust. Anything else, Meira, that you may add to it?
Yeah, sure. So, what we see mostly is that the problem is not the process that you have in place or the people that is working on it, but it's mainly starting when the ticket has to come from one system to the other. So, you have your own clients, each one uses several other tools. And you need to keep everyone up to date in what is happening, right? So, what we see the most is one company doing this, working with 5 clients, let's say, each one using their own system, and they need the data coming to them so they keep their SLAs in place, and they cannot force everyone to move to Jira, for example. So that is where it comes. You cannot do manually that. You can do for 1, 2, 3 tickets, but when you have that growing up, you need something to make everything flow naturally and you can say reliably, right? So everyone is aligned, everyone has and know what they have to do.
So we will be discussing the things around the current process that people might have without the integration in place, like simply sharing an email, sending a message on Slack, calling someone, doing every other things that is simply a regular old school kind of conversation. And we will also be covering the scenarios around the internal setup. So we have various of cases like IATA or other customers where internally different teams are using different systems. So let's say a support team is using, let's say ServiceNow, a development team is using Jira, or there's a sales team using Salesforce, right? And the development is using DevOps. Plenty of different configurations where simply the company requires the team to work in different systems because let's be honest, there is no system that's best for everyone. And instead of like forcing everyone to just one that might not suit all of those, but simply as one of the options, they prefer to have the best there is in each category and then simply integrate the data. And another topic we would be covering is simply the cross-company integration, right? So either one company to another company, a simple case, but also we have plenty of cases with managed companies where there's a single internal Jira and they work for, let's say, 20 different customers, and there's a single team, support team handling all of those, right? So let's think about the alternatives, right? What they can do, right? They can either like start tracking emails all around. They might be logging into all those customer systems, which would be very ineffective, or they might simply introduce the integration, right? So yeah, those are the things that we would like to discuss today. Yeah, so what breaks at scale? We have this lovely point on this slide. So maybe a question to you, Meira. What breaks at scale? Why does those systems are supposed to be introduced or might be introduced for a better efficiency?
Yeah, like I was mentioning before, when you have one client or you have one company or several teams, let's say, as you mentioned, one using Salesforce or the other using HubSpot, ServiceNow, whatever the tool that they want to use, which is better for their team, you cannot control everything. And when you are scaling or you have multiple clients, at one point you will lose something, right? If you don't have a system working and flowing the information from both sides. So this is something that you will see on a daily basis. You have either a different client with a different tool or a different team with different tools. And one team thinks the other teams know what they are doing or what they need, and the other team has no clue because the data is not going there. Initially, companies can try and do that manually, just bringing the tickets and manually doing that, as we saw with some clients. But when you reach a point in tickets that is no longer reliable or possible to keep up, right? And it will slip. Either an email or something will slip through the cracks. And that misalignment will impact your SLA, it will impact your business, it will impact your clients.
So let's just think of an example that simply there is a maintenance company working with various of customers, and there's an incident, right? And all of those customers are shooting emails at the very same moment, and then you have like 100 emails in your inbox, and you try to manage them all. It's not very effective, right? Instead of you can have a lot of different tickets, maybe match them, maybe treat the same incident across different customers as a single one to simply take care of, right? So those are the things that are important. Another things that I also listed is that email is also bad when it comes to the visibility, right? So when you have a ticket, when you have an open system and an integration between the systems, it's not just about the people assigned to the tickets handling those, it's also the whole team behind those, right? So you can be the stakeholders having reporting based on top of these tickets. You might have the people, the stakeholders affected by the incident also watching what's happening and tracking those, or maybe the escalation is possible when it's the ticket inside the other system instead of an email or a Slack notification or a call, right? So all those things are important from the regular concept of simply tracking and executing, like closing this, finding out what's happening, but also the compliance. You're usually bound to respond within a certain time, and usually you're also bound to simply resolve the ticket within a certain time, right? So those SLAs are usually based on time, right? So in order to track the time in a proper way, you need to have a proper way of counting this, of starting the timer on the right moment, right?
Yeah, I would also say that you can have an email and that person is on vacations, or the person left the company already and the client keeps unanswered. So if you have that flow to the right place as a ticket, for example, that minimize the risk of losing something important and not being compliant with your rules or your contracts with your customers, right?
Yeah, I also remember the case about the customer when in one of the case studies that we discussed the reason behind getting the integration in the very first place. And I thought one of the main arguments would be simply the speed, that like the manual copying and pasting, time zones, misalignments, simply people just not focusing on the inbox on this very moment, so you have a lot of lag. But they responded that one of the biggest advantages of the automated process is also the reliability, that people, while making copying and pasting across different systems, they make mistakes. They might forget an attachment, they might have a delay and simply pasting a last comment, and so one team would be working based on the outdated context. You're losing time, right? You're using simply like this crucial moment when you need this stuff done, and instead of focusing on getting this done, you just misaligned, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go to the next one. Loading. So what changes when ticket moves across systems? The tickets no longer arrive as messages; they arrive as structured data. Can you elaborate on that one, Meira?
Yeah. So syncing the data in syncing the information in the ticket is not really equal to aligning everything for both systems, right? So you have in one system, for example, you have ServiceNow status, priority, comments in ServiceNow will be certain in a certain way, while in Jira they will be different. Even the status you can modify, you can have different things. So the done in one, for example, it's not the same as the resolved in the other one. So you have to just make them flow, make them mirror themselves, make them work in order the data to make any sense, right? So that is what starts to change. You need one system to talk, let's say, to the other one, so they have reliable information, they have the flow working properly, right? In the fix for this is sharing the meaning. So when we are with the customers, showing them the systems, you will see that when you have different status, different priority, you have to make them similar or make sense on the other side. That will ensure that the data that you are bringing works with the SLAs and work with the team and actually makes some sense. One case I would say is our own internal case. We had one project, customers would reach out with minimal information, and the team receiving that information would need to go back and forth to try and figure out more stuff. So we did redesign everything, ensuring that the first person that receives that already has the minimum information to work at least the bare minimum with the customer and try and resolve with the first touch. So this is what also you want to try and do when you are working with different systems, making sure that the data that is flowing from system A to system B contains the relevant data, so your team is actually working, actually seeing what they need to see.
So that's covering one of the very first stages of the integration process, right? So when you make a switch from, let's say, email sharing to simply an automated integrated process, the very first step is to simply prepare the environments and decide what is being mapped, how this process is supposed to look like. So instead of like a unstructured wall of text that might contain irrelevant data or usually doesn't contain what's relevant, you simply enforce the process to be effective for both sides, right? So one side, opening, creating a ticket is required to provide a certain amount of informations, but no more than that, right? So also from the perspective of a ticket, which might have 50 fields and let's say 20 of them are very important internal ticket informations, you only share those, let's say, additional 30 or some 20 of those that are required for the ticket resolution and the other company or the other team might know of, right? So that's one of the first cases. And simply, another one also the speed, because we might have two different scenarios. One of them is simply introducing the integration on the very beginning of a project, right? Let's say you're onboarding another customer. This is the case of a Cindy's on the customer when they started this integration on a first implementation. Now every other customer they onboard is already onboarded with the integration. Then it's relatively easy because you can work on the setting up this process good from the very first moment. But another case is simply improving what's already there. So let's say a company was working with this email, Slack, or call, or whatever, like as a process, and now they see how inefficient that is, and they would like to upgrade to the integration. And I believe that one of the things worth covering is also the speed of how fast you can test this integration concept in a living organism, right? So this mapping of the fields is something that we believe is much more powerful than, for example, if you would like use the tool that simply require you to have 6 months of scripting to just figure it out how it works, right? So I believe that for those cases, you also should think about how fast you can show the value to the stakeholders, how fast you can like switch the manual process to the automated one on a living organism, right? So this kind of process. Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, I thought it was on my
Oh,
end.
no, it looks like my microphone again.
Okay,
So yeah, that's what I was saying is that one of the things is introducing this integration for a new concept of simply two companies or two teams working together. Another one is simply introducing this on the living existing process, manual exchange of the data. Then what you need is simply the process, the tool that will let you introduce this fast. And what we try to achieve with the mapping concept is something that you might introduce this integration within, let's say, hours, maybe even minutes, right? With the concept that you said, so mapping the fields and mapping the, let's say, the statuses, the values with the data that are not identical, right? So this is one of the things to consider. Simply mapping what you said, the business context, not the exact thing between the systems, right? So the systems may have different namings, different workflows, and what you try to achieve is simply making the integration and this whole cooperation work in a way that works good for all the parties. You don't try to make everything alike, identical, right?
correct. Yeah, it would be just a mirror more than equal parts, right? So you were seeing what the other is seeing, and that's the basics of it. But I would also add, in this era of AI and intelligence, when you have data flowing like this, you can build, if you have your templates, you have your structure well done, you can have AI to help you on a daily basis because you are sure that you have the correct data. So that is also a next step that you can think of when you have everything integrated, working properly, the data on the right places.
Yeah, structured in a way that is enabling the AI agents
Exactly.
to be trained based on this concept, and then also on
Exactly.
all the information that is being added in the process, right? All the comments, internal notes, everything else, right?
Yeah.
So also internal notes is an interesting factor, right? That with the integration in place between the two different tools, you can decide what is integrated and what stays private. So, for example, when it comes to the comments, you might have a setting where only the public comments and informations are being shared across the teams or the companies, and still all both those teams on their respective tools can work with using internal notes on in a private way, right? So deciding what is the answer they should provide for the customer on the other side, right? And the integration is enabling everyone to share the context internally or share everything externally as well, or just the things that are like a result of the discussion, right?
Yeah, you have full control of what you want to share with the other team, what you don't, and what you want to keep in your systems for the reports, for AI, for whatever you want.
Yeah. So that's the advantage over emails, right?
Yeah.
So let's think about a case. This is something that brought this conversation in the very first place. So the real case studies from the customer, and we can start with IATA, which is a case for the internal use. So it was an integration between Salesforce and Jira, and simply it worked in a way that ticket arrives with already mapped fields. The context is already included, and there was no need to follow up to ask any follow-up questions with this setup. So simply what they try to achieve is they have a one team, sales team working and a service team working in Salesforce, and a development team working in Jira. And what's also interesting and important is that with this particular case, as a team, as Getint team, we also had to sign the SLA agreement related to how this whole process is being guarded. That's also one of the arguments where you put this SLAs in very first place, right? So this, you need to make sure that whatever is business critical for you is guarded properly, right? And this is where the integration comes in, because this is where you can have this dependability, accountability for everything that's happening, right? You can't miss an email. You see everything, right? The visibility is there, right? Any comment on that one?
Yeah, that is important for us, this one specifically. It made us look further in what and how we need to address stuff. And as you said, keep an eye on everything, don't miss a thing, which help us to work better with the other clients as well, helping them to understand what they need, what they cannot see, what they are missing on a daily basis. Um, yeah, it was a very interesting case working with IATA,
Can I
improving the systems to fall into their SLAs as well.
And that was the case of changing the existing process, right? So they started with
Exactly.
the manual case. They saw how ineffective it was, how painful it was internally, and that's why they decided to introduce the integration, right? So that's the case where they wanted to have this integration pretty fast, right? So what they saw was ineffective. They couldn't wait another 6 months of wasting context. They needed to have the integration up and running pretty fast, and that was the approach. They started small and they started introducing more like detailed integration, more context, like along the way, right? So yeah, let's go to the next one. The next topic is related to the statuses, so different workflows. So obviously the SLA is controlled by the status behavior, not the status names, and overall how the status is being controlled, how the SLA is being controlled by the statuses. This is kind of the thing that also you take care of on our side. So please.
This one is very interesting, not just for us, but remembering now clients that we have with different languages, which is super interesting case. You have a client working a system, even Jira itself, Jira to Jira, but their system is in German, for example, or it's in Turkish, whereas the other team, the developers or the team that they need to work with, is in English. How do you just transfer the data in different languages like this? Same status or similar status, but total different languages. So you have to make them work in a way that you map them and show them this status, whatever language it is, or whatever status is, will be equal to closed or will be equal to skipped. And that will work properly in your system. So whenever they change in that side, that will transfer to the other side, keeping the SLAs moving. In our case, what we always see is, for example, I put the status on waiting for customer because I'm waiting for them to send me an answer, right? That automatically pauses my SLA, so I'm not counting anything. That is a decision that we made to work with this. So working with L2, for example, it's another status that I put in there. We'll also pause it because we are working internally, not depending on the client, not depending on another system. Whereas in the other side, for the L2 or for the developers, their SLA is also counting, waiting for them to respond to us. And we need that conversation. So it avoids us working on the ticket, sending a Slack message, for example, waiting someone else to pick it up. And when they pick it up, then, oh, yeah, now the SLA is broken because I was waiting for too long. I did not have any clue that if it was someone working on this or not, if they were seeing this or not. So this improves visibility, accountability, and all that involves SLAs and proper responses to the clients and the team as well.
I will add to that let's just think about the intent, right? So when you introduce the SLA, when you raise a ticket, you simply want to get this stuff done, right? And
Exactly.
in order to get it done, you need to make sure that you know who's responsible if you're not blocking somewhere because you simply missed a comment or you haven't provided the additional context, right? So in the end, what you try to achieve is simply working in the way you're usually working, simply opening the ticket. This ticket goes to another system, and you have the full preview on every stage, on every context, on everything that's happening. And you can't, like in the end, it doesn't matter whose fault it was. If it was a manual process and somebody forgot to paste a comment, the right comment, simply forgot to copy and paste stuff or provided context, it doesn't matter in the end. You can, of course, like if something really, really breaks, and somebody making mistakes, you can involve lawyers and all the other stuff related to that, but that's not the intent. The intent is to get this stuff done as fast as possible, right? And in order to achieve this one, you need to have the workflows and all the context aligned and matched almost identically or identically depending on the business need, simply as fast as possible to make sure that the process is efficient, effective, right? So the intent is to simply make it done, right? And to make it done, you need a reliable solution.
Yeah, we can also say that you need to map, you need to use the systems in a way that it tracks the SLA behavior and not labels. So you need to be intentional about what your status mean and what it will do on the other side. right? And what you will do on your system, so your teams can work together. What does the status, for example, the one that I mentioned, we also have a status, the time after the triage to then respond to the customer, right? So what does time means? That means we are compliant with our SLAs for the clients, for the systems that we work with. So we know what this time means. You have to know that changing from triage to submitted, or for submitted to triage, sorry, we have a time to respond. Our team knows that there is a time to respond to comply with that. So you have to be meaningful about what you are setting up in your systems.
So this slide is mostly about the statuses, but I think we can go slightly beyond that and also say that status is just an example of how different companies might work, but this can be true for every other field, like plenty of drop-down fields that might be in place, plenty of required fields that might be in place for one company, they are not in place for another, right? So you try to understand the intent and then map those things with like fixed values, simply mapping the context, not the namings, as you stated, in a way that makes everyone feel comfortable, in a way that is efficient and effective for the full process to simply take place.
Yeah.
Okay, so the next one is the case related with the Ino apps. That's an interesting case because it's a multi-setup, and this customer is integrating Jira, Zendesk, and ServiceNow. That's a case when, let's say, this company is using Jira internally, but is working with different customers using different systems. Each of them might use different one. This is an example. And initially, they tried to achieve the integration by simply developing this case by themselves, developing the integration internally. And at some point, they simply figured out it's not effective. It's not cost effective as well. So they decided to try another ways. They tried the integration platform. And in the end, they ended up using Getint. And one of the cases was simply related to the statuses mapping, as the example we did. So simply a done state in Jira may at the same time mean 3 different states in ServiceNow: closed, closed incomplete, closed skipped, right? Yeah, this is just one of the examples of how one-to-many is usually a lifesaver, right, when it comes to integrations.
Yeah, that is one very interesting case. Actually, we have also an interview with this client specifically, Brian, if I'm not mistaken, his name, where he is mentioning that human error was something that they were very concerned about when moving something manually to the other side. So you lose not only the ticket itself, but you lose important information. You lose a client that is waiting for a ticket. You cause other issues, right? So this case can show a lot of interesting points in there.
So you covered an interesting fact, because we can't forget about this human factor in the place, right? So with reducing the possibilities for people to make a mistake and simply rely on their memory, you're also improving the relations between them, right? So if there is less things that can go wrong, more things good are done simply in a proper way. So that means that the whole customer experience between those two companies or those two departments is simply much better, right? Because they achieve this intent, this goal of having things done much more effectively, much more pleasant and friendly way, right? Because everything is structured in a way that enables the friendly relations, right?
Yeah, there's no friction, so everyone can work smoothly. They know you receive the data, you receive the information, you will work on it. So I don't have to bother you to a point that there is some how can I say it? A bad feeling, right? Because I have to push you to resolve your stuff. So yeah.
Yeah, you're not afraid about the stuff. You don't have this feeling that you need to check. Hey, have you saw this email? Have you checked the Slack notification?
Yes.
I hope you haven't forgot about the notification. So maybe set a reminder on the notification so you can remember this like in 2 or 3 hours. Or maybe then you read this notification or like simply this message, you simply like bothered about some other context and you simply forget about what was written there, right? This kind of integrations simply make sure that the things are just done, right? It gets done.
Yeah.
So then we can go to the ownership, which is also a part of the SLA process. yeah, so what can you say about the ownership challenge, ownership issue when it comes to this?
Yeah, so we actually get a hook from the last comment. The ownership, it's the most problematic things when you're doing Slack messages or email. So let's say a Slack message, as we discussed before. You will just put a message in there in Slack, wait for someone at one point to read that message, right? And then let's say you have something happening, an outage in your system, you have multiple messages. Your message can be buried, but the other ones, no one's look at it, no one's check. You sent the message, so you think, okay, I'm good. I sent the message. And you think your case is being worked on when no one takes it. Until someone finally, by some miracle, see your message and respond and then start working on it. So you cause a delay, you cause a problem, you can cause friction inside the team itself and with the clients that are waiting for it. So this type of integrations, this type of flow predefined will minimize the problems with the team and ensure that you have control over everything. So even if, let's say I send something to the developers, they will have their own triage. They will send to the correct person to work on, instead of me trying to figure out who is the best person to work with on that case, which might not be the case. So you also have the ownership, the reliability, right? That person will work on that. I'm okay. We can work together after we have the tickets assigned to the correct people.
So if something is important for you, you don't like to rely on somebody noticing things. You make sure that somebody takes ownership. I think that same goes with the emails. How many times I saw something that you usually you can tell if something is extremely important by the amount of people and the to window in the email, right? So you try to get everyone on board so everyone can see and everyone can react. That it might result in a case that everyone thinks, okay, it's important, so the other person will take over, right? Because all of us are in the to section. When it comes to a ticket, simply you're just assigned. That's a similar case to if you would go to the system of a company and open a ticket simply in their system without the integration in place, right? But then we have the issue on the other side. It's simply me opening a ticket in the name of a company, and then you, let's say, also affected by this are not having the visibility. Like, of course, you can be added as a watcher, but simply having this in the systems respective for the different team or the different companies simply enables you to react quicker, to have better visibility, because also even if you would be simply opening a ticket, you might miss a notification that is coming to your email that an update was taken place, right? And you lose a day or you lose hours simply not showing this email coming, right? When the whole flow of inbox, right? So yeah, this ownership is very important, and simply the proper integration enforces it to work in a way that again gets the things done.
Yeah, and the integration can help you when you have it in place to also understand if your ownership model is broken somehow. So let's say you have a triage system or you don't have a triage system. So that will go anywhere, right? So we will see where this is breaking, where is the gap there. You will send a support ticket, for example. You open a support ticket that is supposed to go to the developers, and then the ticket can be just staying there. So you'll see, okay, the ownership problem is not in the support level, but I need to take care of how to triage the tickets for the developers or for L2 or whatever is the team for sales, whatever is the team, right? So you'll see properly where is the problem with your workflow, if there is any.
So the escalation is also much easier with this, with the
Course,
proper integration in place, and also the qualification, right? Because if you have all the fields, all the labels on a single ticket, the person receiving the ticket not only takes the ownership but also qualifies this and decides what kind of SLA is now the stuff that we have to count, right? So is it a P1, a P2? How much time do we have to answer? How much time do we have to resolve? And also the customer on the other side very quickly sees and can quickly react on disagree, have a discussion, simply escalate it further, and yeah, this whole visibility and action is much better than regular forwarding stuff, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so the other one is about the failure patterns, right? So different setups, some root problems. Yeah, what can you say about that?
So different setups, it's easier cover when, as we mentioned before, you have mirrored the fields, the status, right? Everything like that. But let's say your SLA, it's paused in one side and it's still running on the other side, and you don't have an integration yet. So you don't have that communication for the necessary fields showing that the SLA is paused in this side. For example, a real example to use. Our dev team resolves a ticket on a Jira, on a bug. And we don't see it because it's not connected. There is no flow between that. On my end, the tickets are still counting. It's still waiting for a response, right? So I'll have to go talk to the devs and see, hey, what is about this ticket? If you have that flow, whenever they close the ticket, you see the information on your side, and now your SLAs are aligned. They finish their work, you will finish yours as well. So you don't lose that. Posting, this also minimizes what we were talking about, Slack and other channels, right? So you can post on the wrong channel or having too many notifications coming, and that will also cause a problem on this. So sorry, I lost the train of thoughts here. But then you can build a reliable process that depends on no one seeing a message, but seeing the correct information in your system. So failure patterns are usually either you have the integration, but you didn't map them correctly, so the data is not flowing to the other side, or you have misaligned status, misaligned fields, the data is also not going through correctly to the other side, or you are using the wrong channels to centralize all that you need, right? So if you have, if you are using emails, or the client is sending you emails and that is not synchronized with something, or you are using Slack, those are the most failures that we see on SLAs when working with that.
We can sum it up with a thought that the SLA counting makes sense only if you're counting the same thing, right? So if you have different concepts of what's currently being it's happening, like is it paused, is it done, is it in state A or is it in state B, I shared the comment but I haven't received the comment, right? So tracking this and making sure the resolution is possible is only true and only makes sense if we both have exactly the same context and exactly the same concept of time, and where is the stage, where is it happening, is it on me or is it on you, right? And how far are we from making this resolved? Okay, so what does the reliable setup look like? So how can we make sure that that we have a proper setup? So let's say that we would like to have use the integration, benefit from it, how to make sure it works well in a relatively fast setup, right? So I don't want to spend months of setting this up. So what are the key elements worth introducing to make sure that I see the value from almost day one?
Okay. So I would say the first thing is understanding both setups, what you need to clear up, if you need, what you need to set up, and understanding what you have in one side that you want in the other side, right? And so then they can communicate properly. You can have, I don't know, 70, 80 fields, but you don't need them all in both sides, right? So you can do a cleanup, you can do understanding if your status can talk to each other, or if you just need a couple of them. That will affect your team and SLAs. I would say 4 things are the most important when defining the SLAs and tracking the SLAs like this. Is SLA being the source of truth in both, in defining the SLA source of truth for both systems, either a status, a comment, whatever it is that you are tracking, just make sure that it's well-defined and with intention. It's just not for it to be there, but you have a purpose for it. The status behavior is aligned with your SLA logic. So if you put a status on triaged, will that stop the SLA? Why? You have a purpose for it. Not using labels, using the status as they should, and updates that propagate fast enough in the SLA window. If you have an SLA of 10 minutes, your status has to flow that way, and your integration will have to flow that way. If you're okay with 3 hours, 4 hours, so they will also have to work that way.
So yeah, also this lovely quote that consistency matters more than the connectivity, right? So also that comes with a point that sometimes you simply try to map the environments to make them work in a way that they can work, even though it's, let's say, not identical. For example, again, we sometimes have a case that some things have to be integrated in a unidirectional way, some things in a bidirectional way. Sometimes you need to protect the initial data being put in place. So, for example, you need to make sure that whatever was put in the initial ticket and is sent over to another one stays this way, even though a ticket is being edited, right? So this edit doesn't come back. So nobody on the other side receiving the ticket, being responsible for it, can't overwrite the initial int that was put into place, right? So those are small things that usually you don't think about when just setting up the integration. Another thing is that you might have 10 fields and then you simply would like them to be integrated with a single one on another side, right? So you don't want to change the whole setup in the receiving system to also have the 10 fields to just be able to receive the data. You might receive them to a single one, right, with a proper setup. So you try to just simply make it effective in what's possible, right, to provide all the context in a reliable way.
Okay. Yeah. I would also say that workflows work different for each team, right? So let's say you have, and that happened before with clients, you have an SLA that works with an automation. So that also can affect your workflow, can affect your SLA, can affect, and like I said, you need to know exactly what you build and why you build so that works properly. So if your SLA depends on an automation or the automation depends on the SLA, they will also need to be taken into account if they will affect the way that you are bringing data, the field that you are bringing in this type of things, right?
And another point worth discussing is the reliability. So you can't just trust that it works, right? You can't just trust that the email was sent, the email was received. You simply need to make sure, especially when the things really matter, right? So we can bring over the ISCG case where the integration is handling the business critical process for them, and both them and the customer, they need to be 100% sure that the ticket is being created on the other side, and then simply the integration is up and running. And if anything will ever happen with any system for any reason, they know about it, right? So they can't rely and just act on things they are not sure of, right? So what can you say about the proper process of and the systems that has to be in place to make sure it's reliable, right? So what are the things that you should monitor, check, and act on?
So you should have reporting page with logs, with information, error message, so you know that if something fails, you can act, and you can act fast. At our system, you can see the reporting page where you have control of tickets that were synchronized. You have automation, not sorry, the automations, it's for Jira directly, but you can have the logs, you can have error messages, you have notifications, so you can set up notifications to let you know that something is broken and why it's broken. So you have time to go there and fix it, not affecting your system, your SLAs. If you're using an automation, as I was mentioning, you also have the loggings and the way that you notify yourself that is failed, so you can act and go there. So one of the key points is to watch what you are doing. Of course, you can rely, you can trust the tool, but you also have to keep an eye on it to make sure that nothing is broken. And if it breaks, you can act fast to resolve whatever breaks.
And also the tool will do some things for you, right? So in a sense, if a Jira is down, if a DevOps is down, whatever, right, the tool will retry whenever it spots that the tool is up again. It will retry and send this information anyway, so you don't lose them, right? Another thing is simply making sure that the ticket was created on the other side. We usually do it with simply either a side panel inside the tool, right? So you can see that the both tickets were successfully synced and the respective like IDs on both systems are, or you can simply create a custom field to track that whenever the ticket is created in a system B, the system B sends the information to system A about its ID, right? So there's plenty of different mechanisms in place, ensuring that it is successful sync, right? So whatever you create in your system, you make sure that it works, and whenever it isn't, you know why, and you can quickly fix it, or you rely on a tool that will simply do it for you, right?
Yes.
Okay, so yeah, the checklist, the steps, how to make sure that, and how to assess the setup.
So usually what I tell the customers, especially on a demo or a first touch with them, is start small, pick up either a demo project, you can mimic your main project, or create something, a test project. Test it out, look how it feels, look on the other side, how also looks. If you need to clean up fields, clean up fields. If you want to change status, change the status, right? Do an assessment of your environments on both sides. And then when you are ready to move, don't pick up the biggest team that you have in there, like the developers, for example. Like you have a ton of developers, they have a lot of work in there. Don't start with them. Start with the smallest team, the simplest one, the one that will accept the movement easy. So you can do that integration using them, testing with them, seeing how it works for them on this integration.
And make sure that whatever is critically important for you, like priority, like escalation, like
It's
statuses
mapped.
again,
Yeah.
that everything simply works, right? So it's mapped properly, it's reflected on the other side. Whenever the change happens, the update happens on the other side. So it's not just about the initial sync, but it's also about keeping the things in sync in a reliable way. Yeah.
Yes. As you can see on our list here, your logic is consistent and you can detect any issues if you have any happening. So these are important steps.
You will receive the checklist after the webinar, all the people that are with us live and the people that will simply watch the recording afterwards. So remember to sign up and you will get it all. So the Q&A, if there are any questions, we try to cover it all. Yeah, if there is anything, just shoot. What observability do we need to keep integrations healthy? So it's covering kind of the last point that we touched, but maybe you can specify an exact things.
Yeah, so you can see, as we mentioned, you have reporting pages, you have places where you can see error messages. So under our reportings, if you using Getint as a main example here, you have a reporting page where you can see error messages, you can see logs, you can have information on how to resolve things as well, right? So you will see the full control and observe. You can also send yourself alerts from the system. So the system will show you if the data didn't flow, or if something broke, if there is an error message, or as Jacek mentioned, the system is down for some reason. You will then capture the data next run when it's live again.
So that's important, because if you have this one set in a proper way, we also see this one every day on support, right? That most of the cases are simply the things that the customer can handle themselves, that they would only need, right? So we try to make the reporting as visible as possible, encourage people to set notifications, because oftentimes when something breaks, it breaks because of the setup being changed, right? Something's change. It's not just the tool, it's simply not the tool not doing its job, it's the tool trying to make its job, but something is blocking this on one side or the other, right? So the proper setup and the communication between teams, whenever you change something, whenever you add a field, whenever you change the workflow, you notify the team on the other side, right? The tool will let you know, of course, that something crashed, but you could prevent it with a proper communication between the teams, right? So a part of the tools and the notifications and everything in place, just talk to each other, right?
That's important for sure. Yeah.
It's the simplest thing in place. Okay. So what else? What if the integration is working, but the two system, they don't mean the same thing?
So on that one, as we spoke before, you need to ensure that your systems are talking to each other, not really just mirroring. It can be a failure. Either you didn't map it correctly or it's an error in the system itself. But mostly it will be you didn't set up properly the two systems to talk to each other, right? So if you have different status, you will need to make them work together. Not exactly equal, but working alongside so they will flow properly. Um, if the
Different
systems are not
assignees,
meaning the
different
same thing,
reporters. Yeah.
exactly. You have different assignees, different users, different priorities, different status, and different ton of other fields that can enter here. So the important part is ensuring that whatever you have in one system and you want to send over to the other side can talk to the other side in a way that the team on the other side understands them, right? That's the main point.
Yeah, so how to decide between building, buying, and automating with AI, or even like simply building this or developing this with AI, right? Um, I would say that we have cases of customers that tried and simply they decided to proceed with a ready tool after some time. But the biggest case is, of course, the cost that you might perceive the cost of an integration as an A value, but then you simply think that you might develop it using internal resources, count the time they will spend on it, decide if it works or not, if it's simply cost effective. Another case is about, one thing is about building this, another thing is about maintaining this and making sure it works. So all this mechanism in place, like retrying, like notifying, like reporting, and then yeah, nothing is written in stone, right? So this integration would be a living thing. So what changes if simply you will decide to scale this integration to more projects, more types, more fields? At some point, it might be complicated in a way that simply developing this with an AI solution, you will simply get lost. You wouldn't know what script to update, what place to change. And the thing is, will you rely on it, right? It is some person in a company just co-develop this with an AI. You can try, but then this person leaves the company, changes context, go to another tool. With a team that's with a subscription on, you can expect this team to perform, to respond to your support claims, to make sure that it simply works, right? Whenever the API changes, whatever, right? You can have someone accountable and simply maintaining this integration in a proper way, like within the SLA that matters, right? So it's, if you try to enforce the SLA with the tool that doesn't have the SLA by itself, that also it's a tricky stuff, right? So it's not the thing that we would recommend, but of course everyone can try and everyone can do whatever they wish, and we enforce, and then we maybe not enforce, we like encourage everyone to try different paths, right, and see what works for them.
Yeah. I see we have another questions as well. Do you help with the integration setup process? Yes, we do.
Mayra and the team.
Yeah. Me and my team, amazing team. So we do help, either just having an onboarding call after sign up, during the trial as well, entering calls, doing demos, sharing the screen, showing them how to set up, or the client, this happens quite a lot. The client show us what they did so far, and we pointed out where it's the problem. When they need a more holding hands process, then we have a team that can help, or we have partners that can do the work for them, with them. So the answer in short is yes, just reach out to us.
Yes, but it should be pretty simple for you to try. We have the quick built in, good documentation, video guides. So most of the customers are simply able to set up, let's say, the MVP of the integration simply within minutes, right? And then if you would like to scale
Yes.
and simply challenge the setup, or even get the assistance to talk to your internal stakeholders about how it can be done, because with a very complicated process that are in place for a year or two or much longer, there's a lot of ifs, right? So what happens if, how can we change this, how can we rely on this, how can we like replace what we have with something new? Then you can simply get us on the call and simply back you up and discuss these challenges together. Yeah, we try to work as a single team with customers to make sure it works. And it's true, and you can verify this by simply watching the interviews and the case studies we have on this channel. Yeah, so just do it. Okay,
Yeah.
I think that's all. Thank you, Mayura. Thank you for the conversation. Thank you for your time. Thank you, everyone, for watching. And yeah, see you on the next one.